Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome in off the bench, back from our extended headlines today. And let's talk about the big one. Drew Brees officially around 5 p.m. making his announcement, and he will that he is hanging up the cleats after 20 years in the NFL, 15 here in New Orleans. The best to ever do it in the city is now gone. It was kind of wild when this news started to break. I was at the New Orleans Zoo, and it was one of those moments where you could hear it start to ripple through the crowd around you a bit, because that's what Drew Brees has meant to the city, is that kind of news quickly disseminates because of what it means to so many different people in this city. And I talked about the list of accomplishments, records, just everything he's done, Jake, being nearly inexhaustible. And because of that, it can be very overwhelming about, okay, where do you start then when you're trying to celebrate a legacy as wide and as dense as this Brees legacy is? And what I can't get away from is where Drew Brees really separates from all of his peers, no matter who those peers may be. I do think that it goes beyond just the field. It's his connection with the city, with the culture, with the state. And what I mean by that is, like, look, I obviously we all know how many championships Tom Brady has won. We know how many MVPs Aaron Rodgers has won. But does either of them have a connection with the people that have cheered them on like Drew Brees does with Saints fans? Like, I would venture to say no.
And also, as we all know in this room, when Drew came here, it was a very difficult time in the state.
Yep.
Like, obviously, we just had a major tragedy with Hurricane Katrina, and there was people just displaced all over the place. You know, people that had grew up and lived in South Louisiana their entire lives, and they had to pick up and move elsewhere, right? Everything they had was gone, right? And football was really a relief for a lot of people. And obviously, Drew Brees and Sean Payton were right there on the forefront of that change for the Saints that gave people just a little bit of an escape, somewhere they could go just for a couple of hours to kind of forget about all the hardships that they were going through. And that's one of the beautiful things that sports can do. And Drew not only came during that time, but like you mentioned, like, he inserted himself right into the community. Like, from day one, he got himself into the New Orleans community and really helped out so many different people. So I agree with you in the fact that, look, I know that Drew's not from here. I realize that he's played with another team before he got to New Orleans. But still, when he came to New Orleans and what that meant, it's going to be hard to ever top what he was able to do in his time in New Orleans.
Yeah, and so you're right. So a lot of this is kind of based on the context, right? There's obviously the context of Katrina. Much less seriously, and just as far as football goes, there's also the context of how bad you were pre-Brees, right? And again, you could go on with these kind of numbers forever, but when you look from 1981 to 2006, in that post-Archie phase, not a single quarterback had made the Pro Bowl for the New Orleans Saints. It's 25 years, a quarter of a century. In 39 Saints seasons pre-Drew Brees, the New Orleans Saints had a .403 winning percentage, 237 and 352. In those 39 seasons, they'd won 2 division titles with 1 playoff win. Again, in 39 years. In 15 years of Drew Brees, you go 150 and 88. So you bump up, you nearly double that winning percentage. You win 6 division titles compared to 2, and you go 9 and 8 in the playoffs with a Super Bowl win. It is hard to imagine a more stark contrast, Jake, than how kind of flailing the Saints franchise was for its history in terms of being a winner and how consistently they won in this Brees Payton era.
I think we all grew up rooting for the Saints in this room, and you know, maybe not Danny Musso as much, but they still remember the days when it was just, man, can we just get a winning season? Can we just be 9-7? Like, we'd love to get into the postseason. And then when they got that playoff victory against the Rams, like, think about that one like wild card playoff.
You talking
victory.
About the Aaron Brooks one back in the day?
That was like utopia for us Saints fans, because we just never thought it would happen, because even with the better teams New Orleans had, like the Dome Patrol, and obviously your dad was a part of those teams, like, we didn't get the opportunity to see those teams win playoff games,
No,
right?
0-4 in the playoffs.
Exactly. And so it was something we just thought was never going to happen. Like, this is never going to happen. And when Drew signed, let's be honest, like, a team turned him down. Like, the Dolphins wanted nothing to do with him. So we had no idea that this was going to be that type of a move, right? You get a new head coach. You've just been a franchise that has not been able to win, and you get a guy coming off a major shoulder injury where it didn't look like he'd ever be able to throw a football again.
Yeah, I mean, a labrum in your throwing shoulder. Like, I've had 2 labrum surgeries. I can't throw a football over like 25 yards anymore. But that what, again, context matters, right? What great context in terms of explaining who Drew Brees is, because this man, I thought it was very telling in his Instagram post, and I take this completely at face value, where he said, basically, I have exhausted myself year in and year out trying to leave no stone unturned for this city. Like, whatever had happened or didn't happen, just know that it was never for lack of effort, right? And that's how you come back even early on from that labrum injury. That's in how you extend into the success that you had later in your career. Jake, you can appreciate this, given your own time in the NFL. This man, despite playing a position in quarterback that whatever, it's a bit more protected now, but a position where, I mean, you're constantly getting hit. This man missed 10 games in 15 years.
Yep.
10 games in 15 years. And most of that last 2 years.
I mean, all of it, basically.
Yeah, 9 of the 10 in the last 2 years. That is, quite frankly, that's just hard to wrap my head around.
After the injury in San Diego, right, for him to be as stable as he was, for him to be as durable as he was and not miss games, I mean, it's incredible. And I was talking about it this morning, some of these ultimate competitors, like, they don't want to retire because they still feel like they have something left in the tank. And some of them, it takes their body failing before they just say, I can't anymore. Like Peyton Manning and his neck surgeries. Like, at the end, Peyton's like, I want to play. I literally cannot. And Drew, the last 2 seasons with the thumb, with the broken ribs, with everything that he's had going on, I'm sure that played into his decision. Like, look, I want to play. I feel like I can play. I'm doing everything I can to get my body right. But my body right now is just not keeping up with where my mind's at, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that's gone into play there. But, man, he was durable for a very extended period of time. And that, to me, look, to play that position and take those kind of hits and only miss that amount of games, and it's all really come in the last 2 years, that's incredible.
It's and it just speaks to someone who is doing everything they can, exhausting himself for the team, for the fans, for the state, for the franchise. And he knew what it meant to everybody. He knows that it goes beyond just a professional team and wins and losses. He knew what because he experienced it firsthand. I mean, we all know what it's like in Louisiana when the Saints win on Sunday versus when they lose. We've all been at bars or at parties or hanging out at a friend's house, and when they win, the party continues. Everybody's all happy. You continue to drink beers. You're celebrating. You watch whatever the next game is, like, with this kind of air of just like this feel good about you. And it's the polar opposite when that team loses. And for the last 15 years, I mean, the party just dies, right? But for the last 15 years, you've had that good feeling far more often than you've had that bad feeling. And in those 15 years of Brees, just to get some more of these records, right? No team in NFL history, this is out of Jeff Duncan's piece in The Athletic, from the Elias Sports Bureau, no team in NFL history has gained as many yards in a 15-year span as did this New Orleans Saints team, 95,665 yards. In that decade and a half, the Saints have allowed the fewest sacks, converted the highest percentage of third downs, and thrown for the most yards. That is enjoyable football. When you're talking about things that are just fun to watch, you know what sucks? Watching sacks, failing on third down. Well, nobody's been better over the last 15 years, half of my lifetime. Like, I just turned 32. I don't know any better, and maybe that's what's going to be. Well, we'll get to what comes next. But the last 15 years, nobody's been better in the league in those regards. And some people, because of this, when you look at Brees, why did he never win an MVP? A lot of times his best years are just timed up with somebody having some insane record-breaking year, so it just kind of is what it is. But then at times, because of Payton and Brees, there was this temptation to label him a system quarterback of sorts, right? And I'll point you to this quote from Zach Streif, who says, people can say and think whatever they want. to claim that he is a product of the system because we threw the ball a lot and he got a lot of yards is preposterous. He was the system. We did not run magical plays. We had a quarterback that on the last step of his drop already knew where the ball needed to go and when and could put it in a window twice the size of a football. That was the system. So make no mistake, right? The partnership between Brees and Payton, absolutely symbiotic, all of these things. But Drew Brees, he wasn't a system quarterback like Zach Sheets said. He was the system. And now that comes to an end.
Look, he changed the mold too. You had to be 6'4", 6'5", 220 pounds with a rocket arm to play quarterback in the NFL. Here comes Drew, and he proved if you're accurate, if you put the ball where it's supposed to be placed, you can have a very bright future in the NFL, right? Because I don't care if you can throw it through a brick wall. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone that on every route on the route tree, you can put it on the money, kind of like Zach's talking about there. That's going to play, and that's what Drew did. I mean, Drew was as accurate as any quarterback as you'll find. He knew exactly where to go with the football as well. That's exactly right. When he hit his back foot, he knew the coverage, he knew what his routes were, and he knew who he was going to. And all of that, to me, doesn't have to do with the system. It has to do with a quarterback that has a skill set and prepared for that skill set.
Yeah, and so, I mean, look, you go back, 20, 30 years, and you'll get Charlie Ward being forced to the NBA because he was too short to play quarterback in the NFL. And now you look at how Drew Brees has cleared the way for guys like Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. I mean, the 6-foot kings are everywhere now, and it kind of all started with Drew Brees. So, again, dense, right? Overwhelming is how I would describe his legacy in the different ways you could break it down. I mean, we haven't even gotten into his philanthropic efforts, where last year alone, Drew Brees and his wife Brittany donated over $10 million for COVID relief to the city and the state. I mean, $10 million in one go, and that's not even getting into like some of the. I mean, Jesse McCormick in the chat just a little while ago. The Brees Foundation, in partnership with Ochsner, opened a pediatrics and primary care clinic in North Baton Rouge coming up April 6th. Like, it just goes on and on and on. The list of accomplishments, both on and off the field, and so obviously we're just another voice in a chorus of voices singing this man's praises. But it's a real testament to the, I think, the vehicle that athletics can be for affecting positive change in a city, in a state, and in a culture. And so we join in with these other voices in saying thank you, Drew Brees. What an incredible time it has been.
No, I mean,
my entire adult life. It's crazy, dude.
I mean, I completely agree with you. What he was able to do with a franchise that had not done anything really before he got here, a franchise that we loved, but just were not winners, and he turned them into one of the most consistent teams in the NFL over those 15 years. They were always in it, and he turned us from wanting a 9-7 season to being disappointed in a 9-7 season. Like, he completely flipped the franchise on their head, and he's going to be missed. I'm glad we're still going to get to see him in his post-playing career in the booth, because I think he's going to crush that job as well. Yeah, well, we'll get to what comes next, both for Brees and the Saints coming up next. But, yeah, I mean, City Boy Outdoors hits the nail on the head here. I'd given up on the Saints. I was looking for another team to cheer for, and then Drew Brees came. Yeah, that's how it goes. Also, a shout-out to Hold the Mayo, who's in the chat now, who was adamant that Brees is going to come back. It's a rough day. Dev, you got it, though, bro. All right, when we get back here on OTB, like I said, let's talk about what comes next for the Saints, because it is a scary time now for New Orleans as one era ends and another begins. So keep it locked right here on Off the Bench.